Good evening, this is the Auburn Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. Tonight's agenda, we have a call to order, fiscal year 2025 budgets to review for the Auburn Public School Department. And the Department of Public Services, we have the library with us, as well as the Cable and Community Access and Veteran Services? And Veteran Services as well. No transfers tonight, and that's it. Let me just read the remote participation script for this evening. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, the number is 1-786-535-3211 with an access code of 991-599-357. Or the public can join via their computers at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. All members of the committee will be here in person tonight, so we don't need to do a roll call, but when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ed Coleman? Here. Patrick Jones?
Here.
George Graham?
Here.
Stephen Consilio? Here. And Mr. Michael Marshall will be here shortly. He said he's stuck in traffic, so he should be joining us momentarily. Town officials and employees participating. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Ed Kazanovich.
Present.
CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Here.
And Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski.
Here.
Okay. With that, call the meeting to order, and first discussion up for tonight is the school department. Dr. Chamberlain and whomever else.
Good evening, members of the Finance Committee, town administrators, folks here this evening. We're happy to be here tonight to present to you the FY25 budget for the school department. And I want to say to you that I stand before you as the proud superintendent of the Auburn Public Schools. We're proud of the work we do, I'm proud of the team we've built, and I hope this evening we can share with you our vision, mission, and our focus for this year's budget. We believe that the support that we've received from the townspeople and from all of you over the years has made the Auburn Public Schools a great place to work and to learn, and we hope to be able to continue that. We start every meeting with our mission, our vision, and our commitment, making sure that we keep focused on what's important. And so I share that with you tonight. These are the tenets of our strategic plan. Again, this is something that guides the work that we do every day. This is a working document, and it helps us to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction, so that from preschool through grade 12, we all have our eyes on the same prize and are maximizing the use of our materials and our staff to make sure that our students have the best educational experience possible. You'll see some commonalities here with our school committee priorities for this year that have been brought up many times before. First is maintaining appropriate and effective class sizes. Each of these help to guide the creation of this budget. Maintaining positions focused on the social and emotional health of our students, ensuring that we have updated curricular and content materials, that our contractual obligations are met, and that faculty, staff, and students feel respected and supported, and that we respect the ongoing financial support that we receive from all of you and the townspeople of Auburn. As we created this budget, there were a number of considerations that came into play. We've maintained our staffing levels so that we can meet the class sizes that school committee has recommended, 25 or less at the elementary schools and appropriate levels at the middle and high. We also maintain staffing levels to meet the special needs of our students. Our October 1st student enrollment counts were used in the decision-making process. School-based materials and supplies have been nearly level funded from last year. There are no new positions reflected in this budget, and you will see throughout that there's an emphasis on supporting the social and emotional well-being of our students to better allow them access to the academic content. As you know, we have a number of support staff, instructional assistants and ABA, applied behavior analysis instructional assistants. They're noted in their current assignments, though each year we move them based on student needs. So if students move up from, let's say, Bryn Mawr School to Swanson Road requiring support, the support goes with them, so that we're maximizing the use of those positions. We've level funded our grant monies in this budget using FY24 amounts for the 240 grant, Title I, Title II, and the Title IIA. We tend to see minor fluctuations in the amount we receive for those grants each year. We've projected the Medicaid reimbursement to be $140,000 as adjusted and approved at the town meeting. And the special education circuit breaker reimbursement is anticipated conservatively at 70% for budgeting purposes. We continue to maximize our offsets from our revolving accounts, which include busing fees, building rentals, Satellite and Galaxy, those are our after-school and before-school programs, preschool, and our athletic and revolving accounts. We participate in school choice through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, with current seats filled at 76 students of school choiced into Auburn right now. Next week at the school committee meeting, we'll vote to see how many students we can take on next year based on those that are graduating and our current enrollment. So those numbers will be determined next week. Again, we've budgeted for 11 regular education school buses, making the assumption we did okay with 11 this year. We're going to hope that that works again next year. We've accounted for an anticipated 5% increase in special education private school tuitions for students in out-of-district placements. And we continue staffing for the social, emotional, and mental health positions, which have assisted in decreasing student need for out-of-district placements, lowering our budget for those purposes. So several years ago, we created some social emotional programs at Swanson Road, the middle school, and the high school. These programs were designed to support kids with social and emotional needs that can't be managed in the general education classroom, but with our skilled staff can be successfully managed in our schools. These programs have helped us to keep kids in, decreasing the number of students who have been outplaced to therapeutic settings. I'm pleased to report that our efforts, under the guidance of Mr. Walton, our Director of Pupil Services, in FY22 we had 18 students outplaced. And I'm sure you're well aware, there's a range of tuitions from $50,000 up to $88,000 or $100,000 for some schools. So having 18 students in FY22, in FY24, we now have 12 students who are outplaced, with several in the process of potentially coming back to the Auburn Public Schools to be successfully supported here. So again, we know that we do have some students that the best placement for them is an out-of-district placement, but we also know that with the right skilled staff, we can support students here for much, much less cost. Increases in electricity, fuel, and contracted services continue to rise across the country, and in the Auburn Public Schools, that's no different. So those have been reflected here. I'll talk a little bit more specifically about that in a moment. Oil pricing is known. That was done through pricing in 2023 with the French River Collaborative. We've also worked with the town in relation to our electricity supply contract and natural gas, so those rates have been determined in that collaboration with the town as well. We continue to use the solar credits from the rooftop arrays at the middle and high school and the solar project in Rutland. So we have projected offsets totaling $3,651,644 used in this budget. Just to highlight a couple of areas of cost increase, one of the major areas of cost increase this year is around building maintenance and repairs, where we saw an increase of $94,000. Water, $53,000 for fuel and electricity at Auburn High School, along with $26,000 for security equipment, repair, service contracts, and fire extinguishers. I hire the service contracts, just getting somebody in to do work that we need an experienced contractor to do. The prices have gone up remarkably. An area of cost decrease in this budget is, again, our tuition to non-public schools and special education collaboratives. By keeping students in district, we've been able to decrease that line item by $117,130, offsetting now the support of those students in our buildings. This budget, as presented to you, may result in two teaching positions. We have two folks retiring that we may keep unfilled to save that money. We have to wait and see till the state money finally comes out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some additional funding we're receiving this year. But in order to meet the 4.5% that we've discussed with Town Manager Kazanovich, it may require that we keep those two positions unfilled. We're going to determine where those positions will fall based on the enrollment and needs of our students. But we believe we can successfully navigate that if needed. We have received some additional funding this year for our newly arrived students who are at the shelter here in town. So there was an initial one-time funding of $1,000 per student that we received, and then beyond that, we're receiving $104.89 per day per student when they're actively enrolled in our schools. So right now, the initial students, we had 22 that came to us back in the very beginning of September. In February, we received an additional 16, so we currently have a total of 38 students. The total for this, the funding, if they stay with us through the end of the school year, and I will tell you that's a tenuous statement to make because we have seen so many changes in who's coming or not coming, who's staying or not staying. It's a very fluid situation, but if those students stay with us through the end of the year, we will receive over $500,000 in the funding that they're giving us. So some of that we're using this year to offset support costs for staff as well as transportation, because we're transporting now 38 additional students to school each day. And we have some flexibility with how we can use that funding. But for next year, our anticipated, we're going to use $267,583. $197,583 is already included in the offset figure that I gave you earlier, with the remaining $70,000 to be used for 2 additional staff members that we have to hire to support these kids. So I will tell you that the influx of that funding has played a substantial role in our ability to kind of bring down the cost of our budget. I will say, hoping that it all comes through. We received our first payment in January. That was $22,000 short. We're anticipating our next payment sometime in April, and then we'll receive the rest of the funding in August. That's why we're able to carry it over into next school year. Negotiations continue with the Auburn Educators Association, which is our teachers' union and the largest union in the district, along with our ABAs. These have yet to be finalized. We're in process, and we've done our best to estimate what this may cost while respecting the financial parameters that have been given to us by town leadership. And again, final state budget numbers are still unknown, so there could be some change in Chapter 70 funding. So tonight we present to you a draft budget of $31,487,276. That's an increase of $1,355,000 over the FY24 budget. I've already mentioned the projected offsets that includes, and it equates to a 4.5% increase over the FY24 appropriated budget. I truly want to thank you and the members of the Auburn community for the support you've given us over these many years. I've been here 14 years already, and so I have a little bit of a history going back with the support that we've gotten from you. I think that has led us to be a district that people want to come to, that teachers want to work in, and that kids are successful when they leave us. So I want to thank you for that. I want to tell you that we've been very thoughtful in the creation of this budget, given precarious situations with negotiations across the state with teachers' unions, with the influx of our new students and the use of the grant funding available there. But I think we've done a good job. I have a great support team here with Mrs. Worsbicky, who I will say, for all of you to know, is retiring at the end of this school year, if you didn't know. But for tonight, she is still here to answer any questions you may have, and I will do that as well. So thank you for all that you do for us. And again, if there's anything I can answer to clarify anything for you, I'm happy to do so.
Through the chair, good evening. I just had a question. I want to make sure I'm reading the budget right, because it's been a while since I've seen negotiation. Sort of, how do I phrase it? So the budget is based on the same salary as last year, but is the reserve account, is that under the municipal side or the school department
No, there's a reserve line, there's a reserve line in our budget as well.
The reserve is where we put all the increases that we anticipate for the unions that we're bargaining with, as well as for anyone, administrators in private individual contracts. So we've tried to put that in there to cover that, so.
Is that like a public number, like in terms of ballpark percent, or is it better not to say that, or?
It's in the budget, but it does include lots of people, right?
Okay.
So it's not a reserve just, for instance, for the teachers' union, right? It includes, myself and Mrs. Worsbicky and folks on separate contracts, as well as the ABAs who are also negotiating with.
Yes, and as far as like the other bargaining groups, we have taken, because we do have settled contracts, we've moved them up on their steps. So it's only the people that need new salary amounts.
And the ones that are not to be negotiated, how many more years are their contracts? Are those non-union positions? The ones in the budget that are not listed as to be negotiated?
Those are the ones, basically, if there's no to be negotiated, those are the ones we've already moved up on their steps, and they should be at a different level. If you look from year to year, there should be an increase, and it's per their contract.
Great, thank you, that's all I have.
Anybody else with questions? Patrick?
Through the chair, good evening, and thank you for a great presentation. I'm a real stickler, and I'm probably the only person in the world for page numbers on stuff, because as I go through this now, I caught something earlier, and I'm having a problem finding it, but I believe at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that there would be 2 retirees that you're hoping to work around and not need to replace. But when you get into the other parts of the budget considerations where you have additions or you have increases, you're mentioning that you're going to need 2 more people. So to me, I sort of am envisioning a wash. And so I'm asking really for clarification in the presentation, because it looks like you're saying you're going to do without 2 positions, but then in another part of the presentation, it says that you're going to be, and that's why I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Those 2 additional positions that will come on, those are temporary positions through next year to support our newly arrived students, and those will be completely funded through the grant monies that we're getting from the state.
That's the answer I was
So that won't
looking
impact the
for.
budget.
Right, it's a grant funded. Thank you very
And
much.
it's actually called, I guess, a reimbursement grant. It's not a
Yep.
typical grant that we had to apply
Sure.
for. They send us this money based on our enrollment.
Sure. But just, I'm listening to you, and I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. The other question is there's a lot of, and I commend you on the number of heads that, as a team, your school committee and your administration has to manage. But I was just wondering if you could shed a little light, a little bit. I understand the choice program. But I believe in here it says you go with a count in October, and then when your board meets at mid-year, you discern how many more you're going to be able to take in. That is not a simple process, I would think.
I won't say it's simple, but it's fairly straightforward. The reason we wait till the springtime is, first of all, the timeline for school choice. So students have until March 31st from other districts to apply, right? So first we have to see who's interested.
Sure.
Could be we wouldn't have anybody. Now, that's never happened. We always have a pretty robust interest in coming to Auburn. But then at that point, we can pretty well predict what our enrollment is going to be for the next school year. And what we do, the committee has already approved that we will accept school choice students at our middle school and high school. Our elementary classrooms, we tend to protect a little bit as far as class size goes. But we have a little more flexibility at those grade levels. They've already approved that we will accept school choice students in middle school and high school, and at the next meeting, they'll determine exactly how many. And that will be based on our current enrollment and what it will look like for next year.
So the only way that at the end of that sentence on that slide, it says may result in added revenue. So that's what caught my eye. So in the event that that should happen, would I be correct in discerning that the choice program for next year would have to garner more students than what's in it this year in order to exceed the revenue that you're currently getting?
Yes,
Thank
yes. And we will know better next week if we're able to do that. So I'm actually working on the numbers to present to school committee right now, based on our enrollment. So right now, we have 76 school choice students in the Auburn Public Schools. We may, next year, perhaps, be able to go to 90 once we finish our analysis.
85, 90, anything greater would discern more revenue?
Correct.
Or may proceed, okay, great.
And that is, we receive $5,500 per student that we take in.
Thank you very much. That's
welcome.
all I have.
If I could just build on that one, because that was gonna be one of my questions. The fee of $5,500, how is that determined? Because if I remember historical stuff, there's always a number floated out there that the average cost of a student pupil in the town of Auburn is more than that. I'm not gonna throw a number, but it's more than that. And when I did the quick math on what the state is reimbursing us for students, it comes out to about $18,000. So why are we at $5,500 for people that want to come to us?
That's set by the state. We don't have any input in what we charge. It's not like we can set a tuition rate. That's the reimbursement through the state. So we report to them our school choice students, and they provide us with the financial return on that.
And we receive
Is
that
there-
quarterly on quarterly payments, so it comes in quarterly for us.
Is there I guess a value estimate based on, is that $5,500 worth the revenue for, if the true cost is, if the Auburn taxpayers are paying, in essence, and again, the number I've heard is like $12,000 to $15,000 per pupil, and the state's only reimbursing us for kids that don't live in the town at $5,500, is there a value for both? I guess I'm not looking for a true answer, that seems like a frustrating number, that if the state's reimbursing us or allowing us to charge $5,500 per student for school choice, yet they're they're sending us for our new students at an amount, significantly greater amount, almost more than double that. Why is the state sort of giving us the difference in values?
So I don't know all the particulars, so Chapter 70 calculations are extremely complex. I've been to several seminars on them of late to better understand it, and let me tell you, there's something to it. But those students are also included in that Chapter 70 calculation, right? Which a big influence on Chapter 70 can be any students who are learning English, low-income students, and just our overall student count. So for instance, this year, we did not receive a substantial increase in our Chapter 70 money because our enrollment was down. So that's also based on enrollment. So that feeds our Chapter 70 money as well, but to tell you what we get for the school choice kids through Chapter 70, I have to tell you, I need someone much more familiar with this Chapter 70 formula, but there is funding that comes in that way as well. It's almost like two separate pots. We get the straight $5,500 for any student that we get, but then that's also reflected in our enrollment in our Chapter 70.
Just, I guess I have a degree of frustration. I'm not necessarily against it, but I have a degree of frustration in that the residents of the town, pay excise tax, pay, their property taxes, and, when we talk about capital improvements to buildings, that these students coming from out of towns, their parents are not incurring those same costs that the other taxpayers are. So if there's a value, a balance of it, sometimes I wonder if it's worth the $5,500, but that's just my discussion on that one.
I will say, it has been a successful resource for the school department for a number of years now. I don't know how many years we've actually done it, but I would venture it's been quite some time. I don't remember us not having it since
No,
I've been here.
Yeah, we've had it, and it's always helpful because it's more, we can use it a lot too as a rainy day fund in the sense of that it's there's not a lot of mandates on it. Oftentimes when we get our grants, there's specific mandates that everything's tied to, and school choice can be a little bit more flexible in those. So we're able to offset the budget using it in various ways, so. But we also, through the chair, Mr. Kazanovich can speak to this, we pay for any of our Auburn students to go out to other districts as well. So, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So we are paying a sum of money to other districts if they go out to other districts. But we've been very fortunate that we've been able to keep most of our students, and we're happy about that. We probably have more people coming in than going out, so that's good.
Yeah, I think the one big draw is Bay Path, where we see a number of students in that 9th grade go to Bay Path.
Well, I mean, it's indicative of the success of the schools, that you have so many students wanting to come here, and there are other surrounding communities that are, it's mind-boggling how poorly some of the surrounding communities, especially at the high school levels, are doing. But yeah, no, it's a testament to, your efforts and your teachers and everybody involved, that people want to come here. I just always have that sort of angst, and then when I hear we're gonna try to possibly expand upon it, is a little more, I can appreciate, trust me, from the financial end, having those additional funds to go to, but I always wonder if there's a true benefit or a complete benefit. And maybe it needs to be advocated more at the state level to increase that number, to represent more of what they think the value is of students, a year of students. Sir?
Chair, I just want to ask, because I understand Kevin's question, but I'm not sure if I understand the calculations, because our per student funding is based on total enrollment, and then the out-of-town folks pay $5,500 in addition to what we're already getting per student, right? Like, it's not like these are two different numbers. Like, it's not like we're spending X dollars on someone who comes in from out of town and getting X dollars for someone who comes in, right?
So when we take someone in for school choice, we consider them our students, so we give them the same service that we would any other student. So it's all in part of the common, we're spending this, like we would on any other student, but that excess money comes in to be able to offset the cost,
But they're included in our Chapter 70 calculation
Yeah, so
as an enrolled student. So the funding
what is the average, like, I guess this is the bigger question. What's the average Chapter 70 per student in town? Is there any way to even figure that out?
Yeah,
Like,
we can't, I don't have.
what portion of our
that.
budget is Chapter 70?
it could be like, I don't want to quote myself, but anywhere between
A
a range of
guesstimate.
13 to 14,000 per student, so that's, I believe. If you calculate, it's all calculated out by our expenses. Every school district has a different number because of the way it's calculated in different categories, like administrators, teaching staff, buildings. It's all broken down of how much we spend on it. It's part of it through the end of the year report when I do my calculations and stuff, and that gets reported, and they work out a sum of what's per student capita.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, this is extra money from the state, not the only money that we get. Because these students count as students for the Auburn Public Schools because they go to school and they participate in everything else. So we're getting funding from the state through Chapter 70 for them, and then we get an additional $5,500
Yes.
just as like a bonus, essentially, right?
So it helps out that way. But there is a difference, like if we were to give you our enrollment, like that we actually have in our schools, when they calculate the Chapter 70 funds, there's a foundation enrollment, and that adds a lot of different, different nuances to it. They take, maybe the kids that are going out and, so they work it out. So they vary those numbers between the actual enrollment and the foundation enrollment. But they budget the Chapter 70 off of the foundation enrollment.
Additional questions? Steve? George?
Motion to recommend.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend the school department budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank
We do
you,
have
thank you.
we do have capital, if we want to go over capital. Just to hit the CIP, if there was any questions on that. And as we look for that in our books here, I want to take a moment to thank Cecilia for efforts. I just found that out tonight through retirement. Congratulations on one hand.
It's been a
but certainly-
pleasure working with all of you. I've really enjoyed my time here, so thank you.
Congratulations.
Tremendous.
Every time you mention that word, she has a big smile on her.
I'm just
You always
looking
have a
forward to
smile on
having
your
some downtime,
Wouldn't- no?
and maybe doing some traveling a little bit, so,
Good,
while
congratulations.
I'm healthy.
We'll miss you, please. We'll hopefully find some role for you back in, at least during budget season to help out whoever your replacement may be. They have
I'm sure
big shoes to
Dr.
fill.
Chamberlain will find somebody to help, make things great, so, we have a great team, so.
Anything CIP, Ed, you want to sort of lead us with what,
No, we, as usual, not only do we comb through the operational side of the budget, but we do the same for the capital side of the budget. So we have reviewed years 25 through 29. We made some slight adjustments as the priorities have been reviewed and assessed. There were no significant changes for the FY '25, but certainly, I think as a result of the new high school coming on and the new middle school has not necessitated some major capital improvements, although our high school is now 20 years old, so, so we need to start focusing on some of the elements within the high school where you haven't seen that in quite some time. So that's been given some consideration. So I don't have any concerns about the capital. I think they try to keep it pretty lean. I know the iPad initiative, which was started several years ago, continues and has resulted in some updating of equipment on an annual basis. Certainly, that's going to be ongoing, and I think that's probably limited the need for hard textbooks, although they're still built into the operational side of the budget. That will never go away, but certainly as technology becomes more available, as it works its way down to the lower grades, then hopefully that will result in some savings in terms of purchasing textbooks. I don't know if the school department has any items they want to focus on, but certainly our recommendation stands.
We're happy with what we presented. I mean, I don't know if you have any questions, I'll try to answer, but we're happy with that as well.
Just one final thing, and I know this was a very lean year, and usually there's some room, and, there's things that we can kind of focus on, and your budget is unique in that the school committee, Ms. Harrington's committee, makes the recommendations, but we only get to see you once a year, unfortunately. Mrs. Cecilia, this will be the last time. Anything that we can, as you look towards the next year, the next fiscal year, anything that we should sort of have in our sights of, this budget this year is at this amount, but next year we're probably going to be one of those years, or it's going to be, anything you can kind of give us some insight into what you see off in the future? I know there's some housing projects coming into town, there's things of that nature, some pupils, maybe coming from those. Anything like that you can kind of just give us?
There are, I mean, we're still kind of waiting for all that, the new housing to kind of come onto line, but even when that study, and, the study was done, I think Dr. Brunel was still here when the study was done for that housing, and I think at the time they had said that possibly we would get 67 new students. Now, in the process of it phasing in and how that happens, we don't know what that's going to look like, right, or what that's going to mean for the schools until the students get here, really. Now, right now, our enrollment is still lower than it was back in 17, 18, 18, 19. We're still down probably 40 or 50 students.
This year we were 55 down.
Yeah, so we're still down, even with the influx of the newly arrived students. So we're still okay. Do I think long-term that there's going to have to be a look at our elementary school buildings? And I'm talking longer term. I will say that Mr. Fahey does a remarkable job, as well as our tech folks, with keeping our buildings so that they can function with all the technology that's now there that wasn't there at some of the buildings way back when. That's going to be down the road at some point. Do I see it in the next couple of years? I don't. We are going to be putting some folks together to kind of do a building study, just to kind of go through and look and see what's being used, how it's being used, how many students are in each area, particularly at the elementary. But I think as far as the phase-in of the new housing, I think we're going to be able to manage that, if it goes as they seem to have predicted it will go. Now, if it turns out that we get 167 students, based on who comes into the housing, that's a different ball of wax. So unfortunately, right now, we're living in a bit of a precarious time. The influx of the students from the shelter we had no idea that was coming until they said they'll be here tomorrow. And actually, they didn't even say that. They said they came 2 days ago. And then we found out they were coming to school. So that's another kind of wild card. But I think we're positioned, we're in a position that we have some flexibility right now. So I think we'll be able to absorb that. But in another couple of years, time will tell, once that all really comes online and you really start to see the numbers from that.
In addition, I just wanted to add that this is the last year of ESSER for us. We're spending down our ESSER 3 that has to be done by September 2024. So that will be a little bit of a funding curve, but we've been able to implement with the newly arrived homeless sheltered students. We've been able to kind of pad that, take care of that little funding cliff. But in years to come, that, you know, once that goes away, that might be gone in '25. So we're gonna need to look, because our biggest thing is, we all know, and I'm sure with the town as well, is our personnel costs. That's the issue every year. We try really hard to keep our expenses down, but when you're mandated by contracts and negotiations, it gets a little bit, that makes things dicey, so.
We did try to maximize the use of those ESSER funds. So for instance, we purchased an entirely new English language arts curriculum, pre-K to 5. That's close to $300,000. So that's money that now won't fall on the town. We were able to use the ESSER funding for that. Was a huge win for us to be able to use that funding, because those programs are exorbitant when you're trying to buy new curriculum, and we want to be up to date. So that was a big help with that. But yeah, it does go away, but this funding that we're now receiving is going to help.
Are we wrapping up any contracts with bus companies? Are those expiring? We'll see new bus
We have,
contracts?
we have 24, we're in process. We have one more year in the bus contract. We extended it one more year. So we will be going out to bid for a new busing contract in '26. I have been hearing that increases are pretty high, like up close to like 15% on some cases, 15%. So that's really high, because I was able to renegotiate ours for 4 for '24 and 5 for '25. So it's going to be a little bit of a jump too, so. We will just keep doing our best to utilize our funds so we can try to offset as many costs as we possibly can. So.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the support.
Okay, next budgets to discuss are Department of Public Services. First, the library. Jean Collins.
Good evening. I would like to echo Dr. Chamberlain and thank you for the support you've always given the library. I don't have a PowerPoint, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have. I thought that I might start out because I'm not sure everybody understands some of the terminology that we use and how my budget is calculated. We're required by the state to be funded by the town for a certain percentage. That's called the TAMI, the Total Appropriated Municipal Income. That's derived by the 3 previous TAMIs, an average of that times 2.5%. Got a little mixed up for the pandemic, then they didn't hold us accountable to it, and so there were some fluctuations there. But so that's sort of always a bottom line that we have to keep track of. If we're not funded appropriately, we could lose certification. And they also take a look at how the funds are expended and how many hours we stay open, so a number of things. We've always been in full compliance. Because we also receive state aid grants. This past year, we received $41,000. That's the highest that we can get for our size of our town. So we're always careful about being in compliance and all of those things. So I guess I'll wait to see if anybody has questions or if you want me to.
Just as they peruse through the budget, can you just kind of, usually give the departments an opportunity to talk about things that are coming up, programs? Obviously, you've got some projects that we've talked about for where those projects may stand, things of that nature.
Sure. In terms of programs, last year we drew just over 8,000 people attended our programs. We do a lot of those in-house. We do that very well. We all wear a lot of hats. 80% of our programs are filled to capacity, oftentimes in one day, and then we have wait lists. So whenever we can, we add another session if it's in the budget, or the presenter can come, or we have time, or we have materials and so forth. So that's a pretty high number for our size library. They continue to be successful. This past Saturday, we had our 3rd annual St. Patrick's Day celebration, and we had 266 visitors between 9 and 12 in the morning. So we had stations set up in the scavenger hunts in the children's room. So there were just under 1,000 crafts put together and 126 scavenger hunts. So we were very busy. It's always a lot of fun. I might add that in terms of programs, programs are extremely important in a public library. There's an epidemic of loneliness in our country, and that's social loneliness. It's all demographics, And because everything's free, we're very fortunate. We work in a happy place. We see everybody's appreciative, and they come in and they're happy with the resources. And so I think it's so critical that we do pay a lot of attention to our programs, because we see grandparents coming in more than ever who are taking care of their grandchildren. And so it's a network for them when they're there. They can talk to other grandparents or talk to the other moms who are at home with children. You know, that can be isolating as well. And so it's teens, it's all ages. So I think that it continues to be extremely important that what we do for programs. So some of the other ones that are coming up, we have, I reached out to the David Clark Company. They do aeronautics for the Air Force. Asked them if they would like to come and do a presentation here, so they were very happy to do that, so that's coming up in March. We do have quite a number for adults as well. Our summer reading program last year drew, I think it was 266 registrations, which is quite a lot for children as well. So, let's see. Sorry, that was 346, not 266. In terms of the building, we continue, DPW is always great partners with us, and anytime we need anything, they're there. I was very happy that we got the green light to add the children's room expansion, which is 820 square feet. And DPW has been doing that in-house. We would not have been able to afford it if we had to outsource that. So they've been there, building the frame is there, and once that's finished, I've been meeting with people for the carpeting and for some other things. That will expand. I was looking at our numbers the other day for children's circulation, and it's just over 30,000 a year, children's books. That's even higher than adults. And by adding the extended portion, which is for kind of for ages 6 to 12, because they're kind of crowded out of the toddler space, we actually can double shelf space, and children's books go out all the time. We're always so impressed by parents who are encouraging their children to take books. They don't really want them on the computers. And so the books do go out, do circulate a lot. So we'll have that much more room to expand our collection for older children, chapter books and so forth. So there'll also be some other things in that section that are more suited to older children, some craft tables where they can come and sit and socialize. There's a couple of technology walls going up there. A career corner where we'll have a real microscope and medical kits and things like that, so we can kind of encourage that socialization with them as well. 6 to 12 is kind of a big range, so we'll have to sort of figure out how to best use that. I talk to children all the time. They're very happy to tell me what they would like to see in there. The only one I had to turn down was a trampoline. But other than that, they're very engaged with it, and everybody's watching it day by day and really looking to see how it's coming along. So hopefully the room itself will be open in a couple of weeks. It depends on the carpeting and so forth. I would also add, not a penny of that came from appropriations. It's funded by an additional $15,000 from Dr. Martha Pappas, and the rest of it is mostly funded through the state aid accounts. So I've kind of been holding on to some of that as best I can. So all the rest of that will come from state aid. At the same time, because we had to move a lot of things around, we will be updating our computers. That includes software and hardware, and instead of purchasing new workstations, we're actually going to paint them because they're still in good condition. So that's actually where a lot of our capital funds will be going when you look at that. It involves more cabling through the firewall. It's badly needed. We're on the CW Mars network, and we have a lot of cables and switches under the desks, and that's not good. So this is a good time to update all of that. And I would certainly give a lot of credit to Mike Marino and to everybody at DPW who really works really hard, working together to get this done.
Through the chair. I just had a question on the assistant director slot. I see that's been open for quite a few years, and then I do notice that the town manager recommendation was a nice hike compared to what you put in. Is that, a couple of questions on that, is that position actively being posted? And how does that compare with comps in the area? Because I just look at knowing that you probably need a master's degree in library science, and I look at some of the teacher positions with a master, like a reading teacher. Do you feel the salary is comparable if the intent's to fill that position?
So, in fact, the position was just sort of tweaked a little bit, can't see you, to be a deputy director position. So kind of like an assistant director, but a little more authority, and with a little bit of a range. We have posted this a number of times in the past. It is supposed to be part of the succession plan, so clearly we need to, move this along. So it was just reposted, and we hope to have, some applicants. It does not require a master's degree in library science. Even a director does not, I kind of disagree with that, but the state sets these bars. You have 3 years to get a master's degree in library science to run a public library. I think that you should have it coming on board, but a lot of what really matters is experience in public libraries, because the degree, if you didn't take the right track, or, you really need the experience. So I'm really hoping that we'll get a number of good applicants and that we can move forward. So it is posted again. So, yeah. And as far as, that's actually high. If you look at comps, that's actually it's very generous, so, yeah.
Additional questions for the library director? Patrick?
Chair, I wanted to ask you, recently this year, I learned that Auburn has also gotten on board in the state of Massachusetts with a Friends of the Library. I didn't know that they existed in Auburn prior to this year, and I learned that because I went to bring some books down to donate, and the library said you have to give those to Friends of Auburn. So the couple of questions I have are, do the Friends of Auburn have their own budget and expenses, and are they separate from this budget?
They're definitely separate. In fact, it is a conflict of interest for me to be involved in administration. If they have a 501c3, that the purpose for that is so that they can accept donations, because we can't, and they can also fundraise. So all the monies they bring in come back to the library when I request funds, for instance. And they're wonderful partners. They work really hard. We have a great relationship with them, and I help them whenever I can without crossing that line. They actually donated $3,000 for virtual reality headsets for the teen area. We were just actually connecting those tonight before I came over here. They also contribute, some monies toward programs and sometimes toward decorations for the library, because there's no place in the budget for that.
Sure, so they do have their own budget, they do create expense, but it's their responsibility to administer their expense, and the hope is that it's a source of funding for you to get additional things that they can provide.
Correct, yes.
Great, and so if you could just clarify for me, how does the average citizen in Auburn reach the Friends of the Library group?
So they have a page on our website.
Okay.
If they call, they have their own email address, so we will give them the email address. And I usually give them a heads up too, this person's gonna be calling you, just so, make sure they know that they're gonna get some phone calls. Or they can ask us. They have a place in the foyer where they collect all the donations, they go through all of them, they clean them up, they always put out, materials that are really good condition. And there's some pamphlets and flyers there as well. So we try to we post something. If they're having a book sale, I'll post it out on the digital sign as well, and help promote that.
Thank you, those are all the questions I have.
Additional question? Michael?
Just, how many open positions are there currently at the library?
So currently there are 3. The deputy director position, there's an assistant position, it's a bylaw employee as well for children's services or whatever. It's not a full-time, it's a part-time position. And then there's another part-time position open. So,
I feel like every year there's always open positions, and so I'm just curious, are we having trouble hiring people because we don't pay enough, or is it because people don't want part-time work? If it's 2 part-time positions, would we be better served by hiring a full-time person? How do we get the library to full staff? Because I feel like I've been on this committee for, I think, almost 4 years, and I can't remember a time when the library has been fully staffed. So how do we fix that?
well, we continue to post. I'm very optimistic that we'll have somebody on board with the deputy director position. It is very hard to to draw people to work in public libraries. To be perfectly honest, people are leaving public libraries in droves. We have a great library. We want to work here. Sometimes the positions are, I had to change the position a little bit because a senior library associate is a union position, and according to the CBA, they have to have certain qualifications and have a certain number, and we just weren't getting the applicants. So what we did the last time was actually made it a library associate position, which is entry level. We're one of the few libraries who will hire at entry level and train people. So we were able to get someone at entry level, and she's working out really well. Unfortunately, we've had some really good people move away because we've had, we have a great team. We're very, it's tightly staffed. And we've had some great people. Some of them actually went on to get their library degree. One went to, because she had never worked in a library before, and she came to our library, and we trained really well. And she was able, with a bachelor's degree, to get head of children's services at another library to where she moved. So it's an ongoing issue and concern with every library. It's certainly not just us. So it's a concern for all library directors too, that we want to, I actually have, we actually have a very high retention rate for the people that we have.
The staff is wonderful, to be clear. Anytime we're having trouble hiring people in a position, my first suspicion is that we're not paying enough and/or that we're not offering the position that we actually need. And if we have 2 part-time positions and we would be better served with a full-time person, I think we should propose that next year. If we can't hire people because the salary is too low, I understand that it's a tough year and it's always a tough year, but let's figure out what we need to pay to get the library fully, if we've set out a staff number and we can't hire enough people to be it, that seems like a major problem to me, so.
So, and the union ones are, those are set by the bargaining,
Yeah.
by the bargaining unit. And I will say too that those are comparable to other libraries. Libraries just don't pay well. Public services just doesn't pay well. You have to keep in mind too, some, depending on what they get for benefits, that's always, there are good benefits here in Auburn. So that's a consideration as well, job security and, so, but thank you for that concern. All library directors are trying to figure that out.
Additional questions?
Maybe a real quick one.
Yes.
And I forget the terminology, but the state matching funds you get, now, is that must be based on your budget, not your actual expenditures? So if you had a lot of unfilled positions,
Yeah, it doesn't impact that at all.
Okay.
The state only looks at degrees, as if you've been there 3 years without a bachelor's degree, that you're going to have some explaining to do. They look at the number of hours open. We're required to be open at least 50 hours per week. I will say that we're in Category E, which is unfortunate for us because we're sort of compared to the towns in the east, which have much bigger budgets, and other towns around us, like Oxford, Charlton, they're in a different category. They're only required to be open 40 hours a week. So there's a lot of, moving parts to it, to all of that. So did that answer your question? I think that I also,
Can you challenge that categorization? Do you think that if you feel, or that you're sharing that with us, that you can make a case to minimize that expense or to get yourself recategorized? Is that something we've thought of doing?
it goes by per town capita mostly, so
So it's
probably
actually not really, we're being compared to those other areas because of the size of the amount of
Yeah,
our
and they
community,
just gotta-
not necessarily the library itself.
Right.
Sure,
I would
thank you.
say that if it ever was the situation where we couldn't meet our required appropriations, you can go to the MBLC and, kind of make a proposal or something.
make a
I'm not
case
sure. I
then.
personally wouldn't want to be in that position, but I
Sure.
wouldn't say, they're not out there, they're not out to be punitive. They want to help libraries. And that's one of the reasons, and I didn't mention, that they require the MAR, which is the municipal appropriation requirement. That's a requirement of the total budget that you must spend on circulating materials. That's 15%. So that's usually up around $90,000, which is a lot. We've actually been trying to challenge that because we think that's too high, because that's a big portion of the budget. But that's $90,000, that's the MAR that we have to spend. So, and they haven't budged on that, so I'm not sure where that's going to go.
Gene, is that a dated formula based where so much is digital now? Is
Yeah.
turning over your hard copy circulation, is that a duty?
Yeah, well, it includes all circulating materials. It also includes museum passes, which we have a very successful museum pass program. We have the most in the state. Our patrons a lot of money with that. So that also counts because they circulate. We want to get moving again. We were halfway there, and then the pandemic came with our Library of Things program. Those are things that circulate. So, things like, instant pots or, things that people don't want to buy, sewing machines, and, lots, and things for children too. So that also counts. They also, 2 years ago, adjusted it a little bit and said 9% of that can be spent on technology. So I look at that very carefully. It can't be just any technology. It has to be something that the patrons touch, like keyboards, or sometimes certain software can be used under that. So I put everything under there that I can to maximize, that amount, so.
Last thing, just for the committee, my wife is on the library board of trustees, so I will be recusing myself from this vote, just to avoid any conflict of interest or appearance thereof.
Thank you. So no other further questions? So the budget before us today so FY '24, the library total amount was $694,180. The department had requested $717,040. The town manager's recommendation for this year is $709,013. That is a $14,833 increase, or 2.14%.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, and one
Abstention.
one abstention. CIP, and Mr. Kazanovich, you want to touch on that? And maybe while we're there, we can also, because I think there's been some projects that have been previously approved, the town meeting, that abut or impact the library, maybe discuss?
Just give me a second to make my way to the CIP, because there was an amendment that was just requested this week. So I do have a question for Jean. I did receive the amendment, thank you. We had a discussion about that with Karen, because there were some prior CIP items that were carried over that would allow her to expend that for the purpose that the 25 was intended for. That being said, I thought we were going to reprogram that, Jean, to another year, but I didn't get a request for an amendment to increase a future year, so.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't sure.
So,
I missed that.
I believe,
I think we were going to put into FY '26, possibly
so-
'27. We can see how this.
we wanted to reprogram this 15 for 25 into 26. And I could do that on the fly, although I would ask Jean to prepare an amendment for
Yep.
increasing 26 by that same value. In terms of outside funding for other projects that are currently on the drawing board, I think Jean gave a great update on the progress of the children's room. We did receive a donation from the Pappers to furnish the children's room at a value of $50,000. So I think in combination with that and state aid, they've done a beautiful job in creating that new area. And that's soon to be completed, correct, Jean?
Yes, it will, the room itself will be almost complete. I'm meeting with the carpet people next week. What will take a little bit longer is DPW is literally building us customized bookshelves for the completely inside and the outside, because now we've got to do something for the outside wall for the adults as well. So they'll be doing those at the rate of about one a week, but we expect to be able to open the room before then. So, but the frame is there. They're actually just going to be sanding over the next couple of days, and they're going to be hand sanding because they don't want to kick up too much dust, which I said, oh my gosh, your arm's going to break off. And then painting, and then that room's pretty much finished, except for when, carpeting comes in and so forth, so.
They've done a fantastic job, facilities. Unfortunately, we lost one of our master carpenters a week ago.
So just one more week, Jimmy, just stay one more week.
So that may slow things down, not only at the library, but for other town projects that are currently ongoing. So I want to thank Jimmy Biragad. He's no longer with us. I can't tell you how valuable he was, and the quality of work that he has constructed here in Auburn is just phenomenal, and he saved the town a lot of money, and I want to wish him and his family well. We're going to miss him. He was a great asset to the town. But in addition to that, the Pappas has contributed $655,000 gifted to the town for the addition to the library, which would be the sunroom, the bridge that is going to span from the library side over to the park side, and it's going to do some enhancement to the park as well. We received some earmarks from the state to supplement that $655,000. We came up with an equal amount without raising the tax levy towards that project of $505,000 in addition to the $655,000. So currently, the bridge is being constructed. We just got a engineering design for the base of the bridge. Once that is in, then we can focus on the actual sunroom, because that area is going to be disturbed during a period of construction. We're hoping to see some progress there in the spring, but that is in addition to what you're seeing now to the children's room. So a lot of activity going on at the library, a lot of enhancements, a lot of benefit to our residents in the community, not only for them being patrons and using the library services and activities, but just for a general gathering area down around the park and the bridge and the walking paths around the pond that were part of the construction of the roadway. So a lot of great enhancements and improvements. We're very excited about that. Things got delayed a little bit because of pricing and supply and demand, but hopefully we can get that back on track and see that project completed.
Thank you.
So outside of that $15,000 amendment, nothing really changed.
To understand the amendment, this handout that came before us this evening is going to get taken back. It's going to be switched to fiscal year '26, and it's going to be increased to '25.
So that amendment you're holding now is correct because it removes it from '25. You'll receive another amendment sheet adding it to '26. So it's just,
But this says, to address the technology needs for fiscal year '24 and '25, the sheet I have in front of me.
right, so the 15 is programmed in FY '25. Is the capital currently?
It's already in funding 25?
Right, but
They're saying they already have the funds.
right, so
fiscal year
this is going to go
2024.
away.
Yes.
And we're going to see a new one.
Yes.
That's going to put, because '26 is empty right now.
You're right.
So '26 is going to have a number in it.
Correct.
That's, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I just pointed out that we had sufficient funds to do what we needed in FY '24
Exactly.
and '25, and so we could put it off until FY '26.
Gene, you mentioned in your comments, and maybe trying to slip it through, succession plan. What is that about? I'm hearing retirees before us, left and right. You don't have any news to share, right?
Well, it's always been the plan to have a succession plan. It just hasn't quite worked out. I will say that, I have phenomenal administrators. Once, the pandemic came and we did have somebody on board who was, just thinking everything's changed. All libraries are trying to rebuild this. A lot of libraries, in fact, don't have a succession plan because they can't find any for the succession plan, so they look within. The two administrators that have been at the library with me for quite some time, they do not want to be, they're happy where they are. And so normally that would be the right thing, is we would be able to move somebody up. But they're, I do have a really strong administrative team. Hopefully we'll get that, that third person. So that's always been the case. I know I've been here before with saying that was a succession plan. It just still hasn't quite worked out, but I'm
No, when it's your timing, it's your timing. We're not trying to rush you along at all. We certainly appreciate the efforts that you put in, and the work you put into that library is incredible, and through, the COVID and to keep things running. And I really think with that children's room addition, and then once the sunroom goes on, you're gonna see a resurgence of people that haven't been in a while coming in and out, either whether they're coming across from the park and coming into the building to check things out. So I think we'll probably see you in the future, you know, short time, saying, hey, my programs are all maxed out and we need to look at additional things, so.
I will say that people are watching, I've not heard any negative comments. People are real excited about the expansion, because when you come in, it extends the glass wall, so we have eyes in the whole time. And it's going to, you know, really nice, and the glass will be coming in a couple of weeks. We don't want to do it too soon, because then we'll have to clean the glass for all the sawdust and everything. You know, the children come around and they want to see the hammers, and so I'll wave to Gordon. Gordon, pick up your hammer, he wants to see. So a lot of interest, a lot of real excitement with it. And, you know, we're meeting also about the sunroom and looking to see if we need to adjust the size a little bit to make it more, you know, more feasible economically, but, so, thank you.
Great, thank you. I think we're good, thank you.
Hey, thank you for your support and your service.
Okay, next up, cable and community television. Chris Hugo. Chris, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
Very good, thank
Can
you.
everybody hear me?
You do.
Oh, thank
That
you.
was a good mic check.
Use your mics.
Chris, do you want to give us some insight into your budget and things, programs, and
Well, we're working on, we've been working with the high school to stream as many local and away sporting events as possible this year. We helped the high school, my counterpart with the high school, set up their own YouTube page. So now all high school events can go to that YouTube page. Beyond that, it's just still covering all the concerts in town, all the local events going on in town, and all the government meetings, or as many government meetings as we can. If you want a government meeting covered, just call me. We'll work it out.
Chris, you explained something to me, I think when we talked last week, week before, that I didn't realize that. Can you explain your role between the school department and community television?
Well, by embedding the community television station in the high school, anything we purchase, the kids can use in their classes. And anything they purchase, we can use. We set aside $8,000 for their use. But above and beyond that $8,000 within my maintenance account and my new equipment account, I can also help them acquire the equipment that they need. The kids provide programming for, will provide programming for our educational television channel. Right now, the only thing we carry on that is live school committee meetings and recorded school committee meetings. We also pull some programming off of the state streaming service server on special state programs going, library author talks. We pulled the State of the Commonwealth address and re-aired that, and other. Sometimes we'll program in House or Senate meetings on funding bills as well.
No, I just thought that was interesting, especially, the school department has television production classes, and I didn't realize that you basically,
They also have a
your budget and equipment supports those.
They have a television club. My counterpart with the school, Scott Stevens, started this club, and there's a lot of interest with the kids, and they're learning how to not just broadcast the game, but also the technical side of streaming the game and commenting on the games. So they have their own commentators and their own statisticians. We supply them with equipment that's capable of recording, streaming, and these great little units. They're called YOLOs. They do everything. Everything that's in that box is in this little unit right here. And it takes any HDMI camera input. has its own graphics, it does scoreboards. So we provided the school with one of those, relatively inexpensive, less than five grand. And the kids love them. We also purchased one of, it's a device, it has everything in a box. It has the monitors, it has the cameras, all remote controlled, and we provided one of those to the school as well. So that unit combined with this other YOLO unit, they can cover anything. We were trying to work out a deal with Joe Fahey to use one of the school buses to tow the production trailer to away games, but that was a bad idea.
If anybody, it's kind of an interesting thing, if you go to the games now, when my niece plays for the basketball, like, it's got a whole additional amount of kids that are involved in athletics through the production, and the kids sit at a table and they're doing color commentary, and it's amazing the technology that they're able to do. And to listen to the games is even more fun when you're at home you watch a streamed game, to listen to their color commentary. Kids aren't quite as good as the professionals, but it is entertaining, and I didn't realize that your department's.
We also we helped them purchase 3, they're called Huddle cameras, HUDL, and it's hardware and it's software and service. And these cameras follow the action of the game automatically. They're set for football, hockey, and basketball at the moment. I think they're still working on the software to cover baseball. Baseball's too dynamic. What do you do? Follow the ball? Who do you follow? What do you follow? At least with football, it's linear. You can follow the action of the game. This provides us with a safety shot, effectively. And so along with the live cameras that we provide, they can go to that Huddle camera for a safety shot, gives them a wide angle and follows the action. And it streams to the Huddle service so that the coaches from the opposing games can download that programming to review their own offense, defense, and special teams.
Questions relative to the community television budget, or questions for Chris? Okay. So the budget for FY '24 was community TV total $187,381. This year you had requested $189,291. The town manager increased that made a recommendation of $193,862. That was an increase of $6,481, or 3.46%.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does he have any capital?
Oh, Chris, do you have any capital Chris, do you have any CIP?
Let me take a look.
I think moving forward, under the new contract, there's no cap, all the capital funding has to be pulled out of operational. We couldn't get that, they weren't including any capital in the new contract. So I don't have I just figured out how to use Munis today, so.
You guys, $40,000 for Auburn High School studio control bundle?
Yep. Make any,
That's coming out of their retained earnings.
So, Chris, are you saying in the future contracts, we will not be able to utilize
I'll have to pull capital out of operational.
of operation? Okay. Any questions on the CIP? Okay, thank you. And the last one that we have for this evening is Veteran Services.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just comment on that. So in formulating the recommendation for veterans, the salaries were pretty straightforward. We have a VSO for roughly 18 hours a week. That individual handles the caseload. We do have a regional agreement with 4 towns, Oxford, Southbridge, and Charlton, where we share our resources. That comes at a cost of about $8,000 to the town of Auburn as a result of that. It's well worth the money. And it's saving us money because without that arrangement, we would, based upon our population, we would need a full-time VSO. So if we had a full-time VSO, we have to cover the benefits, so there is a substantial savings by regionalizing that. In terms of the medical relief, and this is one that could fluctuate from time to time, we've been running pretty consistent. We have, I think, a caseload of 14 or 15, and based upon that caseload, the recommendation made at 115 is adequate enough to meet that caseload. Certainly, this is something we have to keep an eye on. Now, we get 75% of all qualifying benefits from the state, so we do get a reimbursement. But if that caseload goes up, it may necessitate a supplemental request at the fall town meeting. But we're only basing that based upon our actuals that have been running pretty true for a while. So we'll keep an eye on that, and if there is a fluctuation one way or another, we'll pass it along to you and make a corresponding adjustment.
Is the 75% that we get,
Yes.
is that given to us directly, or does it go to the shared resource and then dispersed that way?
No, it's distributed through cherry sheet distribution.
I'm just,
So typically, it's a year backlog.
yep, okay.
But we submit our monthly reports to the state. They're reconciled, and based upon that, we're getting a,
So to understand it right, we've got an individual who we share, but they're actually still doing independent reporting for us, so we get independent information.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
yep.
Any additional questions on this one? So FY '24, it was $1,216,980. Department-
143,000, Mr. Chairman. It's total for the,
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
yep,
That was a big number. That was the total for the Department of Public Services. FY '24, $147,812. The department request was $143,071, which was also agreed by the town manager, $143,071. A motion?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
No transfers this evening, no minutes. Any additional questions before we have next week's meeting?
I have one question. On,
Yes.
on the, like on the library division, it says buyback. Like, what does buyback mean?
It's a union, it's the buyback of the
so
town.
under, that was under the library? So there are a handful of contracts, employment contracts, that are allowed to be negotiated with certain employees. Police, fire, town accountant, CFO, library. Under those employment agreements, there are other benefits that may be considered. The library director, I believe her employment contract had expired, but she had a provision in her contract that allowed for a 1-week buyback of vacation. So there's nothing appropriated in the current year. I think there was an expense in prior year, that's why you're seeing it there.
While that's brought up, you mentioned buyback, so employees that retire, you just mentioned, a longtime carpenter, when they have time on the books, are they paid out for time that's remaining?
So anyone who may leave employment, whether it's through retirement or whatever, if they take another job, they have accrued time on the books. There is a provision that allows for a payout of sick up to a value of $3,000 for anyone who only retires, not leaves, okay? So if someone just leaves for another job, they don't get that benefit. They do get their accrued vacation time, they're due that time when they leave. So in most cases, there's a balloon payment to those individuals.
Where is that accounted in?
So normally it comes out of their regular wage account, and there's a delay in hiring normally. And so in most cases, we don't have to rely on another funding source. If we do, it would typically come out of the salary and wage reserve account.
Thank you.
We've done transfers for it too before, like out of an open salary line.
Right. Okay. So next week's meeting, March 27th, we've got Department of Development and Inspection Services, Solid Waste, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Department of Public Works. Anything additional? A motion to adjourn otherwise? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.